Well, here we go. If any of you saw the last clock video, the zombie clock, that really got me interested in clocks. So I got it in my mind that I want to make my own clock. So what you just saw there was the glue up of a panel that I'm going to use for the bezel. And now I'm going to cut it to size. But anyway, this clock that I want to build, I have a few different things I want to try to do. I'm going to do some inlay on it, and I'm going to use a movement that's out of another clock that I have. It's an old clock. It's an Ansonia. It's 1882, and I have the whole clock, but I don't want to buy a new mechanism just for this, because to get a decent one, you're going to pay a couple $100 at least. So what I'm going to do with this one is I'm going to make a clock that can be mounted into, or it can be the movement can be taken back out and put in the original clock. Now the original clock, that damn thing is cast iron, and it is heavy. So I'm not going to be cutting any cast iron parts on this table saw for it. I either have to use what I have there or nothing. But the clock happens to be in pretty good shape, so I don't have to worry about it. I don't want that clock. Maybe somebody does. I don't know what to do with it. It was given to me. So anyway, I got the blank cut for the bezel, and the bezel, this is going to be, the style of this clock is going to be a maritime themed clock. So the bezel will, it's going to have a couple of mermaids on it, and some other stuff like that. And it's going to be a little more colorful than the previous clock that I did. So what I'm showing now is how since I don't have a planer, I have a tiny little garage. I don't have a way to plane anything to get it flat. I have to use my CNC router for that. So this is I wanted to show how I set something up to make it flat. So none of these boards, after you glue them up, are flat. So you have to find the high points, and then you shim it up till it quits bouncing, till it quits rocking. And once you get it in that situation, what you don't want to do is you don't want to clamp it down. If you clamp that thing down and cut it, as soon as you release the clamps, it's going to spring right back to where it was. So no, you don't do that. So you first of all get it so that it's stable, and then you block it in. This is something that I learned from all the machinery work that I used to do. We had a company that did Blanchard grinding, and whenever they grind aluminum, the table of the Blanchard grinder is magnetic. Well, that shit doesn't work with aluminum. So they would do the same thing. They would block it in with metal, and it would hold the piece of aluminum stable, and they could grind it. Well, that's what I'm doing here. I'm pushing that up against some dowels in both directions, and then I can go ahead and run my cutter to get it as flat as I can get it. So this is the end of the cut. This is the last pass. And then when this is done, I'll flip it over and do the same thing on the other side, except that I won't have to shim it up because this side is already flat. So I'll maintain the same edge that's up against those dowels and block it in and cut the other side. And that's that. Working on the new bezel. This is a little bit different from the one I originally planned on using. but the other one didn't really work out. So this is the housing that I made, and of course forgot to record all the cuts and stuff that I made. This is how I put it together. I have another piece I'm going to do the same thing on. It shows how I actually do it. This is the base that the clock actually sits on. So after I cut the pieces, I lay it out, and I put some masking tape on the corners. And this actually works really well. You can use one of those miter clamps if you want to, but as far as I'm concerned, they don't work worth a shit. Just get yourself some masking tape and clamp up a couple blocks. So I'm doing a little test fit here, and the blocks that I put in against that stop are the right dimensions. So now it's just a matter of getting some glue in there. So of course, the dumb shit that I am, I never cleaned the tip out on the glue bottle. So I got to squeeze it so hard that my arm gets sore. And I don't know why I don't just do shit right. Anyway, I spread it out. I got a little foam brush, and I spread the glue in there and get it evenly spread out. And then put down some wax paper so the thing doesn't stick to my table saw. And put it in its spot. And that's really all you got to do. Make sure it's pushed down so everything's lined up right. It's easy to adjust with the tape. So I'm putting the radius on the two front edges. I didn't have a better way to do this. It's a 1-inch radius. I don't have a 1-inch coving bit to put in my router table, so I just do it on the CNC router. It takes a little longer this way, but it's the only way I have to do it. And you got to do it in multiple passes. You can't take that cutter that deep. It's 2 5/8 inches deep. Here I'm cutting the step where the screws will come in from the bottom to mount the housing and the front bezel. Again, I screwed up the program, so you see the plunge is going down like really slow. And this is where I'm finishing up, putting a bevel on the little feet that I have on the four corners, just to give it a little bit better look. It's a 60-degree 1/2-inch cutter that I'm using here. Back to the bezel now. Some time lapse has occurred here, and I've already lacquered it in black, and I'm engraving the mermaids in, which will be on either side of the clock face. I mean, you got to have mermaids. I don't know what else you can do. So I did a little bit of modification to the mermaids that I found, and we'll just leave it at that. So then this area here is going to supposedly represent a ship's wheel. So you'll when it's done. And this is the base that bezel mounts on, along with the housing. Carving the inscription and a couple of sailing ships on the ends. This is the finished product. You can see where the ship's wheel is, and the only thing I really don't care much for is the base. I think I used the wrong wood for that. The detail in there doesn't show up very well, the inscription plus the other carving I did, because of the color of that wood, and it doesn't really match the other wood. So I don't know if I'm going to make a new base for it. I can, but I don't know if I will or not. Now the clock runs really well. I don't have it running now because you really shouldn't be doing stuff like this with it, with a pendulum in place. And that's look at the inside. So everything is screwed together so that it can be disassembled fairly easily. There's a back that goes on there when it's in its final position. Then again, it's, I should make that back easier to remove, because you don't want to move a clock around while the pendulum's in there. You need to pull the back off, take the pendulum off before you move it. So I may end up attaching that back a different way. But anyway, that's it. And if you're an old Navy guy, you might like that inscription that's on there. It's kind of hard to see, but it's there. Thanks for watching.